Welcome to Detective Reddington's office. Take a seat and listen to this story. It will be interesting. I first met Linda around 7 years ago, and right from the start we connected deeply. We both grew up in small-town America, where faith and community were at the heart of our lives. Sundays were spent in church, discussing what our futures might hold and the dreams we had. My career as an engineer took off pretty quickly, and Linda was excelling at her job, working for a tech company that specialized in accounting software. Just before our wedding, my parents, who had always believed in sharing their blessings, gifted me a 3-bedroom house as a graduation present. They believed in giving while they were alive rather than waiting. A year after we tied the knot, everything seemed perfect. Linda was my partner in every sense, and our relationship only grew stronger. Our intimate life was passionate. We spent time together in the bedroom several times a week. Friends often joked about how well-matched we were, and some even admitted they were a little envious of how close we were. Things only got better when we welcomed twins into our lives. Raising them became our top priority. We were determined to create a loving and nurturing home. Some people might have found our life boring, but for us, it was ideal. Most evenings were spent at home, cooking meals together, and on weekends we focused on family time. Fashion and social events weren't really our thing, and Linda's wardrobe reflected that. Simple and professional, both at work and at home. Our marriage was built on trust and respect. Linda always found small ways to show her affection through kisses, hugs, and gentle touches. We shared everything, and although raising twins had its challenges, I cherished every moment of it. About a week before Linda's company's annual conference, she received news that she had to attend. A few of her colleagues had caught a virus, leaving her no choice but to fill in. She was reluctant to go, apologizing profusely for having to leave me and the kids behind for 3 days. She even mentioned trying to talk her way out of it with her boss, but ultimately, there was nothing she could do. "I hate being away from you guys," she said, her voice heavy with regret. I tried to reassure her, telling her that the kids and I would manage just fine for a few days, but that we'd miss her. I helped her pack, and we headed out together to meet the limo her company had arranged to take her to the airport. As she kissed me goodbye and climbed into the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was different, but I brushed it off. Our marriage had always been built on trust, and Linda had never given me a reason to doubt her. On the second night she was away, I received a text message from Mike, a buddy of mine who was attending a cybersecurity event in Dallas. He mentioned that he'd seen Linda at the same hotel where his event was being held and asked if I was attending the same conference. I confirmed that Linda was in Dallas but didn't know the name of her exhibition. His response left me uneasy. He followed up by sending me 2 photos and a short video. The first picture showed Linda wearing a dress I had never seen before. It was much shorter than anything she typically wore, and the neckline plunged deeper than I was used to. Her hair was styled perfectly, and she wore makeup that made her look absolutely stunning. At first, I laughed, thinking how beautiful she looked, but then the next photo came through. In it, she was sitting closely with a man, her boss, Tom. My heart sank as I stared at the image, numb, trying to comprehend what I was seeing. The final clip, though, was the hardest to watch. It showed Linda and Tom kissing. Her arms were wrapped around his neck, and his hand was resting on her waist. My stomach churned, and I felt sick. I wanted to believe there was a rational explanation for everything, but deep down, I knew the truth. I called Linda immediately, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Desperately, I left a message, trying to sound casual, telling her that we missed her and hoped she was having a good evening. A few minutes later, Mike messaged me again. "I'm sorry, man. I just saw her check her phone and put it back in her bag without answering," he wrote. His words hit me hard. I thanked him for telling me and told him there was no need to follow her anymore. But inside, I felt my world crumbling. How could I have missed the signs? Everything had seemed perfect between us. In fact, in the last 6 months, we had grown even closer. None of this made sense. That night, I sat alone in our living room, staring blankly at my phone, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. How long had this been going on? Was it just a mistake? My mind was racing, filled with questions but no answers. I poured myself a strong drink, hoping it would help dull the ache in my chest. Yet, the pain lingered, and the images of Linda with Tom played over and over in my head like a cruel movie I couldn't turn off. About an hour later, another message from Mike lit up my phone. This time, it was more photos and a short video. In the new footage, Linda and Tom were dancing. His hand rested low on her back, too low for my comfort. The next image showed them in a deep kiss, completely oblivious to the world around them. My heart shattered. This wasn't just a passing mistake. This was something more. I knew in that moment that our marriage, the life I thought we had built together, was over. But I also knew I couldn't act impulsively. I needed a plan. Linda had no idea that I knew about her affair, and for now I needed to keep it that way. I had to be smart if I was going to make her pay for what she'd done to me, to our family. Over the next few days, I methodically planned my next steps. Then, one evening, just as I was putting the twins to bed, Linda called. Her voice was soft and sweet, just like always. "Hey babe, sorry I missed your call earlier. I was at a work dinner and couldn't get away. I miss you and the girls so much," she said, her words dripping with affection. Took everything in me to stay calm. "I miss you too," I replied, forcing myself to sound as loving as possible. "The girls are great. They miss their mom like crazy." She sighed. "I hate being away, but I'll be home soon. We'll celebrate when I get back." Her words made my stomach turn, but I held it together. "Are you done for the day?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation casual. "Yeah, I'm about to go to bed," she answered softly. "It's been a long day. I love you." I clenched my jaw. "I love you too, Linda. Good night." As I hung up, the tears came again. I still loved her, even after everything I had seen. But that love was now tangled up with something darker. Anger, betrayal, and the cold desire for revenge. I spent the rest of the evening pacing around the house, unable to sleep. I kept wondering what Linda was really doing at that moment. Was she alone in her hotel room like she claimed? Or was she with Tom again? My question was soon answered when Mike sent me another message. This time, it was a picture of Linda and Tom sitting in the hotel lobby, kissing like a couple in love, his hands sliding under her skirt. They didn't care who saw them. They didn't care about me, our kids, or the life we had built together. It was like they were in their own world. Mike messaged me again. "Do you want me to keep following her? I can stop if you want." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "No, let her go. This is her mistake to make, not yours. Thanks for everything." After that, I cried myself to sleep, feeling like my entire world had been ripped apart. The woman I had loved more than anything had betrayed me in the worst way possible. Exhaustion eventually took over, and I drifted off into a restless sleep filled with memories of our wedding day and the happy moments we had spent raising our daughters. The next morning, Linda flooded my phone with messages filled with hearts and emojis, telling me how much she missed me and couldn't wait to come home. She even hinted at how passionate our night together would be when she returned. I could hardly stomach reading her words, knowing full well she had been with Tom just hours before. When she finally came home, she acted as if nothing had happened. She was sweet, loving, and affectionate, playing the perfect wife. I began to wonder if maybe she was suffering from some sort of dissociative disorder. How could she pretend so well? How could she be so affectionate with me while carrying on this affair? But deep down, I knew the truth. I had to face it. This wasn't something that could be fixed. The lies were too deep, the betrayal too painful. As the days went on, Linda continued to act as though everything between us was normal. She showered me with affection, played with the kids like the perfect mom, and slipped back into her routine as if nothing had changed. But I knew better. I couldn't let her know what I had discovered just yet. Instead, I played along, pretending to be the loving husband she thought I was, all while carefully plotting my next move. I installed tracking software on Linda's phone, something I had purchased years ago to help locate lost devices. This software had advanced features, including the ability to record calls and messages. I had never planned to spy on my wife, but after what I had seen, I felt like I had no other choice. My trust in her was completely shattered, and I needed to know the full extent of her betrayal. Every day, while taking care of the twins and going about my routine, I checked the software. I watched as Linda texted Tom, calling him babe, and planning their next meetup. They used the same pet names we had once shared. It made me sick to my stomach. Each message was like a knife twisting deeper into my chest, but I forced myself to read them all. I needed to know everything if I was going to confront her when the time was right. One afternoon, while the girls were down for their nap, I sat at the kitchen table, reviewing the latest texts that had been uploaded to the cloud. Linda had sent 6 messages that day, each one dripping with sweetness. She even mentioned how much she missed me and hinted at a romantic evening when she got home. But as I read through the texts between her and Tom, my blood boiled. "You were amazing last night, babe," one of Tom's messages read. "Can't wait for tonight." Linda's reply came shortly after. "Thanks, honey. I had a great time too. Let's meet in my room before dinner." Before dinner? She was planning to see him again before even calling me to check in on the girls. I felt my chest tighten with rage, but I couldn't let myself lose control. Not yet. I slammed my laptop shut and stood up, pacing around the room to calm myself. As I tried to get a grip on my emotions, the sound of the twins crying snapped me back to reality. I rushed to their room and scooped them into my arms, holding them tight until they settled down. Their innocence was the only thing that kept me grounded. After cleaning up the mess I had made earlier, shattered glass from a lamp I had thrown in a fit of rage, I let the girls play in the living room while I sat down with another drink. My thoughts were racing. I knew our marriage was beyond repair, but the hardest part was knowing that Linda didn't seem to care. She continued to lie to my face, to our children, and she had no idea I was watching her every move. That night, as I lay in bed, pretending to be asleep, Linda crawled in next to me, her hand resting on my chest like everything was fine. She whispered how much she missed me, how hard it had been to be away from us. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that I knew everything, that her lies had broken me. But instead, I stayed silent, playing the role of the doting husband a little longer. For the next few weeks, I kept up the charade, watching Linda's every move and gathering more evidence. She had no idea what was coming. I made appointments with a divorce lawyer and started quietly moving money into accounts she couldn't touch. The most important thing to me now was protecting my daughters. They were my lifeline, and I couldn't let Linda's deceit destroy their future. One afternoon, while Linda was at work, I received a call from Carlos, the private investigator I had hired. He had some updates on Linda's activities, and we arranged to meet at his office the next day. When I arrived, Carlos greeted me with a firm handshake and led me into a small, dimly lit conference room. "Hank, I wish I had better news for you," he said as he placed a thick leather folder in front of me. "This is everything we've gathered over the past few weeks." I braced myself as I opened the folder. Inside were hundreds of pages of text messages, emails, phone records, and photographs. Each piece of evidence was meticulously timestamped, showing Linda meeting with Tom at hotels, restaurants, and even a secluded park near our home. But the worst part? It wasn't just Tom. Carlos showed me photos of Linda with another man, Charlie Gray, the CEO of her company. My stomach turned as I flipped through the evidence, realizing that Linda had been involved with not one, but 2 men. Carlos sighed and leaned forward. "Hank, based on the evidence, it seems that Linda has been seeing both Tom and Charlie for several months. They've been meeting at least 4 times a week, and there's more. There's a video. I think you need to see it." He pulled out a USB drive and inserted it into his laptop. The screen lit up with footage from a hotel balcony. I felt the blood drain from my face as I watched Linda with Charlie. The video was clear, there was no denying it. They were caught in an intimate moment, completely unaware that they were being recorded. I had to step out of the room to collect myself, my heart pounding in my chest. When I returned, Carlos continued to show me more evidence, each piece more painful than the last. As I sat there, staring at the pile of evidence in front of me, the reality of what Linda had done settled in like a heavy weight on my chest. It was no longer just a suspicion or a fleeting thought. It was undeniable proof that the woman I loved had betrayed me in the most devastating way possible. The video on the balcony wasn't even the worst part. Carlos revealed another video labeled Balcony 2. And this time, it wasn't just Charlie. Tom was there too. They were all together. Carlos gave me a sympathetic look as I sat there, trying to process what I was seeing. "Hank, I know this is tough, but you need to see this through. If you're going to move forward with a divorce and custody battle, this evidence will be critical." He handed me a binder with all the details neatly organized and a USB drive with the digital copies. "Your lawyer will need these." I nodded, still in shock, and left his office. My mind was spinning, my emotions a whirlwind of anger, sadness, and betrayal. How could Linda do this to me, to our family, and with two men, no less? I felt sick just thinking about it. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Over the next few days, I worked closely with my lawyer, going over every piece of evidence Carlos had collected. She was shocked by the sheer amount of information we had on Linda's affair. "This is more than enough to win custody," she said, her tone firm. "We'll start preparing the paperwork immediately." But I wasn't just after a divorce. I wanted revenge. Linda and her lovers had destroyed our marriage, and I wasn't going to let them walk away unscathed. My lawyer helped me file lawsuits against both Tom and Charlie, citing workplace misconduct and emotional damages. Given the high-profile nature of Charlie's position as CEO, my lawyer was confident that a public lawsuit would force a settlement. In the meantime, I kept up the act at home. Linda had no idea what was coming. She continued playing the role of the loving wife, completely unaware that I was already several steps ahead of her. Every morning, she kissed me goodbye before heading off to work, and every night, she came home acting like nothing had changed. But I knew better. I was just biding my time. One evening, as we sat down to watch a movie after putting the kids to bed, I casually mentioned a new intern at my office who had been flirting with me. "Can you imagine me with someone else?" I chuckled, trying to keep things light. Linda's eyes narrowed, and she shot me a serious look. "If I ever caught you even thinking about being with another woman, I'd leave you in a heartbeat," she said, her tone deadly serious. I had to stifle a laugh. The irony of her words was almost too much to bear. How could she say that with such conviction while she was carrying on two separate affairs? But I played along, nodding and agreeing with her. "Of course, honey. I'd never do that to you." Later that night, while Linda was in the shower, I pulled up the messages between her and Tom on my phone. One particular message caught my eye. "We need to be more careful. Someone saw us at the hotel," Tom had written. Linda's response made my blood boil. "Don't worry. Hank's easy to manipulate. A few kisses, some good sex, and he forgets everything." I clenched my jaw, feeling a surge of rage rise up inside me. She thought she could play me for a fool. But little did she know, I was already setting the stage for her downfall. The next day, I put the final pieces of my plan into place. I transferred the rest of our joint savings into a separate account, leaving just enough to keep things looking normal. I also made sure to lock down my assets and secure full ownership of the house, which I had purchased before we got married. My lawyer confirmed that I wouldn't be forced to leave once the divorce was finalized. Then, I began drafting the email that would expose Linda's affair to everyone. I attached all the evidence, the photos, the videos, the text messages, and addressed it to her entire contact list. Her family, her friends, her colleagues. I even created a separate binder with all the details for Tom's wife and Charlie's wife. They deserved to know the truth about what their husbands had been doing behind their backs. On the day the legal papers were ready to be served, I acted like everything was normal. Linda kissed me goodbye as usual and left for work, completely unaware that her world was about to come crashing down. Around noon, I received a message from the sheriff's office. The papers had been delivered to both Tom and Charlie at their company headquarters. I couldn't help but smile at the thought of them sitting in their plush offices, panicking as they read through the lawsuits. But I wasn't done yet. I waited until the end of the day, just as Linda was wrapping up work, before sending the email. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with notifications as the messages were delivered to everyone on the list. The fallout was immediate. Linda called me in a panic, her voice shaking. "Hank, what the hell did you do?" she screamed into the phone. "You ruined everything." I stayed calm, my voice cold and steady. "No, Linda, you ruined everything. I just made sure everyone knows the truth." She sobbed into the phone, begging me to reconsider, but it was too late. The damage was done. By the time she got home, her bags were already packed, and I had made arrangements for her to stay with her parents. "You need to go, Linda. This is over," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. Linda stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with disbelief. She looked around the room at the packed bags, and then back at me, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Hank," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I love you. I love our family. We can fix this." Her pleas didn't stir anything inside me. The part of me that had once loved her deeply had already been torn apart. Now all I felt was cold detachment. "You should have thought about that before you decided to throw everything away," I replied, my voice steady. "This isn't something we can fix. Not anymore." I handed her the paperwork from my lawyer, outlining the terms of our divorce. "You need to get a lawyer. We'll settle this as quickly as possible, but you're not coming back here." She collapsed onto the couch, her body shaking with sobs. I watched her for a moment, almost feeling pity for her, but the memories of her betrayal quickly snuffed out any sympathy I might have had. "You need to leave," I repeated firmly. "The girls will be staying with me, and I'll be filing for full custody." Linda wiped her tears, her voice hoarse from crying. "You can't take them from me. I'm their mother." Her desperation was palpable, but it didn't change my mind. "You should have thought about them before you started sneaking around with Tom and Charlie," I said, my tone harsh. "This is your fault, Linda. All of it." I watched as she stood up, grabbed her bags, and walked out the door, her shoulders slumped in defeat. The moment she was gone, I felt a strange sense of relief. The lies, the deception, it was all out in the open now, and I could finally breathe again. But the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. There were still legal battles to fight, custody issues to resolve, and the inevitable fallout from Linda's affair. The next morning, I woke up early and took the girls to my sister's house. I didn't want them around when the full storm hit. I knew Linda would try to come back, to convince me to change my mind, but I wasn't going to let that happen. As I dropped the girls off, my phone buzzed with more notifications. Friends and family were already reacting to the email I had sent. I could only imagine what was happening on Linda's end. Around noon, I got a call from Carlos, the private investigator. "Hank, it looks like the fallout has already begun," he said, his voice calm. "Tom and Charlie were served with the papers yesterday, and it didn't take long for their wives to find out. I'm hearing rumors that both of them have been kicked out of their homes. It's only going to get worse from here." I thanked Carlos and hung up, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. Tom and Charlie had destroyed my life, and now they were paying for it. But that wasn't enough. I wasn't done yet. I wanted them to feel the same kind of pain I had felt, the humiliation, the betrayal, the loss. Later that day, Linda called me again, her voice filled with panic. "Hank, please," she begged. "I've lost everything. I can't lose you and the girls too. I'm sorry for what I did, but we can still fix this. We can go to therapy, work through it." Her words fell on deaf ears. "You didn't just betray me," I said coldly. "You betrayed our family. You've lost us." That night, I sat down with my lawyer to go over the next steps. She was confident that we had enough evidence to win full custody of the girls, especially given the nature of Linda's affair. We also discussed the lawsuit against Tom and Charlie, both of whom were scrambling to contain the damage. A few days later, I received an email from Linda's lawyer. She wanted to meet to discuss a potential settlement, but I wasn't interested in settling. I wanted her to feel the full consequences of her actions. When the day of the meeting arrived, I walked into the office, feeling a sense of calm I hadn't felt in weeks. Linda was already there, sitting at the table with her lawyer, her eyes red from crying. She looked up at me as I entered the room, but I didn't meet her gaze. Couldn't. Not after everything she had done. Hank, I don't want this to get ugly, she said quietly. I just want to see my girls. Her words hung in the air, but I remained silent, waiting for my lawyer to speak. We're prepared to offer shared custody, her lawyer began, along with a financial settlement that should be agreeable to both parties. I leaned forward, my voice steady. I'm not interested in shared custody. Linda's actions have shown that she's not fit to be a mother. I'm filing for full custody, and I expect the court to agree. Linda's face crumbled as my words sank in. She knew she was losing. But they're my daughters too, she whispered, her voice breaking. You can't take them from me. I finally met her gaze, my expression hard. Watch me. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and court hearings. Every time I saw Linda, she looked more and more defeated. The evidence was overwhelming, and her affair with not just one, but two men, made her position untenable in the custody battle. The court ruled in my favor, granting me full custody of the girls. Linda was devastated. She moved out of our home and into her mother's house, where she spiraled into depression. She called me constantly, begging for a second chance, but I ignored her. I had given her every opportunity to come clean, and she had thrown it all away. Now, she had to live with the consequences of her choices. Tom and Charlie didn't fare much better. Tom's wife filed for divorce almost immediately after the news broke. He lost his job and was forced to sell his house to cover the legal fees. Charlie, on the other hand, was fired from his position as CEO and lost millions in stock options. He, too, faced a bitter divorce, and by the end of it all, both men were left with nothing. As for me, I won custody of the girls and rebuilt my life without Linda. The betrayal still haunted me, but watching her fall from grace gave me some sense of closure. There were days when I missed the family we used to be, but those moments were fleeting. I knew I had made the right decision for myself and my daughters. In the end, revenge didn't bring me the peace I had hoped for, but it did give me control over a situation that had once felt so utterly out of my hands. I moved forward, focused on raising my daughters and building a new life without the woman I once thought I would grow old with. The love I had for Linda was gone, replaced by something colder, but my love for my girls kept me going.